Fucking g'day, mate. Today I'm going to be going over the age-old question, does my band need a label? If you're anything like I was, I'd say your knowledge of what a label is and what a label does is pretty limited. Labels have changed a lot over the past decade and their role in the industry is much different than what it was. They're no longer the gatekeepers of success. A lot of what they can do, you can do on your own now. With things like CD Baby, Root Note, and other distribution methods, PR, marketing, and a little luck. That said, there's still some pretty important reasons why signing to a label might be a good idea and worth you giving them a cut. I'm going to break down for you what a current year record label deal looks like, what a label can do for your band, what a label expects of your band, and what you can do for yourself to make sure you're not getting ripped off. Now, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I'm not an all-knowing industry deity. I'm still learning, I'm still making mistakes, and I'm doing my best to make it in this sick, sad, cruel world, just like you. But I've learned a bit over these past 8 years of being in a band, so I'm gonna pass that information on to you. Mostly gone are the days of 80-20 splits or 360 deals. A bit over a decade ago, it was the industry norm for a band to sign to a label for 5 records and have them take a cut of their merch, their record sales, and their touring income. This was called a 360 deal and it was fucking shithouse. Let me make it crystal clear, a label should really only be taking money from your album sales and maybe any pre-order merch they front the production cost for. If they offer you anything else, politely tell them to jog on. The aforementioned deals well and truly still exist, but you should be looking long and hard at that contract and that label and really seeing whether or not it's worth signing. These days, a fair record deal would look something like a 50-50 or 60-40 UA split of record sales over a licensing period of about 10 years, with about, say, 3 to 4 releases of either EPs or albums, with cash advances that go up each release. Now, a 50-50 split might seem fair to you, it might not, but keep in mind it's very rarely actually a 50-50 split. A lot of record labels these days are actually subsidiaries, meaning there's a line above them of people that are all getting a cut of the profits. The higher-ups make deals with the record labels for distribution fees and other mechanical costs. Meaning, if your record label distributes to another company, and let's just say that company takes 20%, you're getting a 50-50 split of that remaining 80%. This may seem like an absolute jip, but no matter where you release your music, there's gonna be hidden fees like this everywhere. You also won't see a cent of your profits until you pay back your cash advances and any other mechanical or promotional fees involved in releasing the album or EP, which may include but are not limited to, say, any CD or vinyl production costs, merchandise production costs, marketing costs that are involved in promoting this release. I once got an analogy from a mentor in the heavy music scene that your music is like a house and you always want to be holding onto the ownership of that house. What you do is then lease your album to the record label and it's in their best interest to make as much money as they can within that period. You never want to give up ownership of your house, however. At the end of the leasing period, you get your house back and 100% of the profits go to you. If you're in it for the long haul, you want to get your house back at the end of that term. It's also important to consider leasing terms for your releases and the amount of options that they want. Options are basically releases after the initial release. Again, if you're in it for the long haul, it might be worth considering, hypothetically, just how long this record deal would last. If it's 5 albums, that may very well be your entire career. So if it's a small domestic indie label and they want you for what they call worldwide with no room to budge, that means they've got complete control over whether an international label gets involved if your band starts to take off. Now, if you're in America and you sign to a big label, it's probably not a big issue for you to worry about signing a worldwide deal. But let's say you're in Australia and your band starts to take off, you kind of want to have that option for an international label to get involved, where your indie Australian label will keep the Oz region and the worldwide label will get the rest of the world and kind of help you do a lot of that heavy lifting overseas. I'm not going to go too much into what international labels do today, but generally what I hear from most of my peers is that you make most of your touring income internationally, playing those 30-date tours, and you make most of your record sale profits in Australia. If you want to get bigger internationally, then you might actually have to live with the fact that the international label is going to fist you a little bit on your album sales for you to make it worldwide, and make most of your record sale income domestically wherever you are. But again, that's completely up to you, and it's something we'll get into at a later date once I'm more well-versed in the subject of international labels. So, what does a record label actually do? Well, this can be subjective from label to label, but chances are you already know a little bit about what a label does because you're in a band and you consume music, and you've probably seen what a label actually does online yourself already. Firstly, they'll do a lot of things you can actually do yourself. They'll make sure your music is distributed online and even in retail stores. They'll send off the orders to get the CD and vinyl manufactured, maybe even produce some apparel pre-order merchandise. They'll post about your music on socials, they'll add you to the website, they'll make sure there's PR for every single one of your releases, and they'll spend some money on marketing. A good label will work closely with you to make sure you're up to date on everything that's happening with your release. They'll get you to post yourself on social media and hopefully work in tandem with you to kind of come up with some creative and innovative marketing ideas for the release. They'll obviously give you a cash advance that you should blow on production and not up your nose, and generally keep a close eye on sales and potential charting. A label will also do a lot of miscellaneous things that you might not actually consider, like pitching your singles to Spotify playlist, making sure you have the most economical means of merchandise production, be fighting for better distro deals with the distributors behind the scenes, and maybe even looking at collaborating with other artists on the label, and even just laying in bed late at night coming up with new ideas on how they can sell your music. If you're with a great label, the label will be their baby as the band is yours. They're not all snakes in the grass, and most of the time they just want what's best for their bands. I actually have the privilege of working for the label that my band is signed to, and I fought for that because I really love the people I work with on the release of our album. They inspired me to do better for my band, and that's generally what you want to be looking for if you decide to work with a label. When my band Gravemind was looking to sign to a label, it was actually a competitor that told me that we should be going with the label that we have the best relationship with, not necessarily what looked best on paper. That was a pretty clear indication to me that some of these labels are just run by genuine people that have a genuine love for music. It'll be your job to work out who's an absolute legend and who's a snake in plaid clothing. Now you might be asking yourself, why the fuck would I sign to a label? Most of this shit I can just do on my own. I can distribute my music on CD, baby. I can ask mum or a bank for a loan. I can basically hire a PR person and I can do the marketing myself. Well, I'm glad you asked, because there are a few reasons why a label is potentially very valuable to your band. For me personally, the biggest thing a label could do for my band was that big old tick of legitimacy. I know that might not sound very punk rock to you, but I know my market and I know what it's like to be a fan of music. When I was younger and living in a rural area, the only bands I knew or listened to or bought the music of were bands signed to labels. They weren't necessarily the indie bands that rolled through my small hometown from time to time that I'd never really heard of. It was these big bands. When I was a kid, I thought that these bands that were on these record labels were larger than life, and my brain automatically put them on some kind of pedestal. Here's the reality though, bands on a label are no different to independent bands outside of a bit more debt and third-party backing. That said though, when it comes to your band's marketing, presentation, and success, little has to do with how you personally feel about your band or the music scene. It's all about how you're perceived in whatever scene you're in. Signing to a label can be that little extra kick you need. It might just be a key element in the perfect storm that takes your band from playing 1 to 200 cap rooms to 1,000 capacity rooms. A label alone won't make your band big overnight, and that is the most important takeaway from this video. But it may just be one of the deciding factors in your band's long-term success. A label won't kick down all the doors for you, but they know the addresses and they'll be sure to knock. When the timing is right and you and your label are feeling confident at where your band is at, popularity and sales-wise, they'll go to the networks of booking agents, international labels, publishers, and do a warm introduction for you. Now you might think to yourself, well, I can just send these people an email myself with the same statistics and the same information and get the same result. Dead wrong. In the music industry, it's all about relationships and money. You pay that 50% in hopes that you are doing well enough that your label is able to then pass you over by a warm introduction to your favorite booking agent. And that booking agent will say, oh, g'day Jimbo, you fucking always send us through some really sick bands that are doing really well, that are selling really well. What have you got for me today? Oh, fuck yeah, cool, that band? Yeah, I've seen they've been working really hard lately. They're getting some really great results, and I've seen that by following your label and working closely with you. Let's get them on board, let's get them signed up. It's all about relationships in this industry. And if you haven't formed these relationships yourself, you're gonna be relying on the relationships of others to get you where you wanna go. Because an email sent from daysmusicproject@gmail.com is most likely just not gonna cut it. Don't get it twisted, it is in a label's best interest to make money from your music in the most economical, tried and tested way possible. If people actually like your music and it reaches the right audience and it sells well, then the label's obviously gonna be very happy. But it is very important to know that if your music doesn't sell well, you may get the feeling like you're getting put on the shelf by your label and being forgotten about. Let me make this crystal clear. This is not on them, it's on you. And I know this is gonna be a really contentious point for a lot of bands that are on labels that feel like they fall into this camp, but here's the most important thing to still keep front and center in your mind when signing to a label. It's all still on you. You should be working your fucking ass off to make sure your music is doing the best it possibly can be, you're presenting yourself in a professional manner, and you're actively looking for ways to market your band in tandem with your label. I've said it before and I'll sure as shit say it again, no one is gonna care about your band more than you are. A label is a tool, it's not a get out of jail free card. If you hang up your success on the label and you get complacent, you're gonna fail just as if you never had a label to begin with. Now, unfortunately, I can't give you a definitive answer on whether or not you should or should not sign to a label. The best advice I can give to you is to make sure that you are as informed as possible so you can make the right decisions. If you do decide to sign with the label, it's still very important to have this information so then you can negotiate a better deal with them. Send your album to as many labels as possible, crack a stick over your knee, and watch them fight for you. At the end of the day, if your band is doing well, it's making money, then it's a commodity. It's a money-making device. Don't lose sight of your worth, but be realistic about where you are and what your goals are and what you plan to achieve. This will help you make the best decision possible when it comes to whether or not to sign to a label. And if you fuck it up, don't worry. It's only your life's goals and aspirations. See ya.